Hello, everyone. Welcome to Made to Dream. I'm your host, Maya Chanel, and here we share stories from women around the world to empower, inspire, and educate women and young girls to dream without limitations. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Shannon Short, and she is a college transition coach and educator. And I'm so excited to get to share this conversation with her, ask her so many questions, and just dive deep into the conversation. So, hi, Shannon. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. I'm so excited for the conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, I want to give you the opportunity to allow the audience to know a little bit more about you and what you do.
All right. Well, I am a trained life coach, and my heart is with the college age girls and young women. So, my work focuses on really coaching, guiding, and educating the high school girls who are preparing for college as they transition into college, through the college experience, and then the college graduates who are moving on into the real world, because those are two huge periods of transition with a
Mhm.
lot of emotion swirling around them, identity opportunities swirling around them, opportunities to really let these girls know who they are and create their lives around their values and their hearts, as opposed to just doing things the way they've always been done without getting curious about how big their lives could be.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have this conversation because I love everything that you talked about, the big transition steps in our lives. So, going from high school to college, that's a transition in itself because you're under your parents' roof. You have all this guidance, all of your decisions are made for you, and now you're going into a space where you're making decisions solely on your own. And
Yep.
then college to real life is a transition in itself because like we talked about earlier, before the podcast started, it's just like you go into this space, you pick a profession that you want to study, and you're unhappy with it
Yep.
because you think that's what you want and you don't go into this deep dive and self-awareness. And I'm excited to talk about it because I feel like, being able to understand who we are, what we love to do, what we're passionate about can save us so much trouble and so much
Uh,
headache
so much.
and so much time in our lives. So, I want to know a little bit more about how you got started with helping college girls. How did you find this as your passion to help young girls transition into their greatness, into their careers, into their lives?
Okay, let's see how to make a really long life story shorter. I always had done everything the way it was supposed to be done. I
Mhm.
followed the timeline of life. I graduated from high school. I went to college. I graduated in 4 years. I got my business degree. I knew after the first finance class that I took, I didn't like finance, but that was my
Mhm.
major. And somewhere along the way, I decided I had to finish what I started. So that
Mhm.
took me, it got me a great job. It got me a job I appreciated, working with a great company, with great people. And I had started learning things, really learning about self awareness, choices, really being a little more conscious and intentional and that sort of thing. And understanding that doing the right thing, I still didn't feel right, but I
Right.
stayed on that path because I didn't know where else to go. And
Mhm.
I remember when I was about 25 years old saying to one of my coworkers, you know, education, they focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic. You can be as
Mhm.
smart as book smart as the day is long, but if you don't know how to relate to yourself and other people, you're really going to be missing the boat. And
Right.
that's where it really started. And then I had an opportunity when I was 29 years old to take a sabbatical from my corporate job. And for the first time ever, certainly in my adult life, that I remembered, I made a choice for myself because it was just something I wanted to do, not something that was
Mhm.
on the timeline of life. And I took a sabbatical, ended up being 3 years officially from my corporate job. I moved out to Vail, Colorado, and I say that's the place where I found my soul, because I got to live in the present, like fully in the present, really,
Mhm.
really getting to know what made my heart sing, not to be woo woo, but that's,
Yeah.
and I didn't want college girls to, and other girls and young women to have to take all these years to figure stuff out through trial and error. I wanted to cut the
Mhm.
learning curve for them. I want to help them get life right from the start and
Right.
not to have to go through the chaos and the confusion of trying to find their way and figure out what works for them.
I think that is so important. Just you being a mentor to them to help guide them through their decisions. Because me myself, I was like you. I when we talked about it earlier, how you were getting your degree and you knew you didn't really want to do it, but because you were so far along, you were just like, okay, let me go ahead and just finish this out. And that was me. I was studying biomedical sciences, and speaking to my different mentors, if I probably would have asked these type of questions earlier, I had mentors before I went to college, but if I would have asked the certain type of questions that would have like altered my decision earlier, then I could have made a different decision to switch, just because I wasn't asking the questions of lifestyle. I always asked questions of, oh, how is the job? How is it being in the office? How is it doing this? How is it? What is the best way to go about doing this or this or that? But as I got older, I started thinking about lifestyle. How do I want to be as a business person? How do I want to be in my profession? How do I want to be as a future mother? I want to be able to have freedom with my time, where I'm able to just like go and do things if my kids need me, or anything. Just be able to have that type of freedom. And I realized that what I wanted to do, because I wanted to be a pediatric surgeon. I was like, oh wait,
That's big.
that is definitely that is definitely not going to give me, freedom with my time, because I'm going to be busy, busy, busy.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's just like asking certain questions, not just thinking about the professional side of it, but thinking about your lifestyle in itself will definitely help you to know what direction to go in,
Yep.
and to know, what you want to do. And I think even if you do get a degree in something, there's always a way to think of the like that is not of the norm, that you can alter and shape these things however you want to. Get the information, get the knowledge, get the awareness, get the experience, but know that there's a way that you can think and you can make a whole spin on it and do something totally different than what the normal route would be going about that degree.
Yep. I agree with you. And I think when you're talking about, like, you didn't ask the questions about lifestyle, but isn't it, we're raised to be students. I mean, our whole
Right.
lives on this timeline of life is we're raised, we're many of us anyway,
Hmm.
especially if we come from a family that's college centric, and you know that you're going to be going to college when you graduate from high school. We're raised to build our resume to get into college, to get accepted into college. So we're not taught to ask those questions, are we, Maya?
Right.
Like, we're not taught.
Nope.
So we only know what we know, and if we don't know to ask those questions, I mean, why would we even know to ask the questions? Because everything has been focused on academics, and you're
Hmm.
talking about lifestyle. Freedom is a huge thing for me. I proclaimed myself as a promoter and protector of fun and freedom one time. And since now it's fun, freedom, and fulfillment. And
Hmm.
I did a program with a friend who was creating a program one time. And one of the biggest things that came out of that program for me is safe does not equal free.
Right.
Safe
Nope.
does not equal free.
I think this time period that we're in now has definitely taught a lot of us that, most people were looking at these jobs as a safety belt, that we
Yeah.
see when, tragedy strikes, nothing's safe. Literally nothing.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. And you've got to, we have such an opportunity to really hone in to our hearts and our spirits and our values and all of the things that we desire in
Hmm.
life. I mean, we get one life, right? I mean, duh,
Hmm.
but right, we get one life.
Right.
We can live that life on autopilot, or we can live that life in a much more conscious, intentional, aware state that allows us to create our life and our happiness. And you know what I teach, everything I teach is based on the foundations and principles and benefits of emotional intelligence.
No,
Knowing
definitely.
ourselves, choosing ourselves, and giving ourselves to our world, to our purpose. And for me also, to touch on purpose real quickly, I think we get very caught up in what is my purpose in life.
Right.
And I kind of like to look at it like, if I'm living in purpose and on purpose, staying in tune to what matters to me, to all of those things, to my heart, to my spirit, to my soul, to my desires, to those things that really light me up, then that takes me toward my purpose every day, because every choice I make is focused on that greater good, on living in purpose and on purpose. I had a coach that said to me one time, a life coach, who said to me, Shannon, if every decision you make, if everything you do as you go through your life is focused on being true to you, being true to your most authentic self, then you really don't have to worry about tomorrow, do you? Because it'll just all work itself out.
Yeah.
Really, this time. Not like, oh, it'll just all work itself out. But if every choice we make is true to all of those values and things that light us up, then we really get to focus in the present, which is huge.
No, I definitely agree, because it's like a lot of times when we're, you talked about purpose, when we're finding our purpose, sometimes it's not a direct impact on someone. Sometimes it's not a direct impact on a group, but you just doing what, makes you happy can sometimes impact someone else to do something that makes them happy, because they can see, wow, like she's actually enjoying her life. She's doing something that is fulfilling to her. Maybe I should do that too. Like sometimes it's not directly, like it's not like you have to physically say something to someone, or you have to just be next to someone and tell them to do something. Sometimes it's just living your life to how you want to live it. And that
Being
is
the
the way
light.
that you can impact. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And
definitely.
having them say, I don't know what she's doing, but I want it. If every choice I
Yes.
make is true to me, then I don't have to worry about the future, because because it will just take me where it'll take me where I'm intended to go, right? Because we worry
Right.
about the future because we're not sure about the present, sort of, right? Maybe
Most definitely. I
something like
totally agree.
that.
No, I totally agree. Just because, you know, we go through life, we're told this is the way you're supposed to do this. And, you may not like what you do in life. You may not like what you have in life, but you just got to suck it up. When it's like, if you want something, if you want a certain lifestyle, if you want a certain way to fulfill yourself in life, then you should go after it. I think that's the way to do it.
And I agree with you. And nobody's teaching us that. And it's no fault of anyone's. It's just kind of, again, it's the way it's always been done. And no, one of my favorite things to think about, I'm shifting this a little bit, but for a long time, I've said the best question ever is why? Well, why? But from a curious place, like, well, why is that way? Or
And
why should I do it that way?
the thing is, we're not often taught to ask questions. Sometimes it's like if we question things the way things are, it's like, wow, you've just created a sin.
Yeah. And think about like the 4-year-old who asks why all the time. Well, why, mommy? Well, why, mommy? Well, why is that way? Well, why is that way? And many children, right, get silence
Yes.
And again, parents aren't meaning to hurt them. It's just like, I don't know how to answer that. So it's like,
Right.
well, that's just the way it is. Or, well, I'm the mom and I say that's the way it is. Or instead of getting curious with them, right? Like, well, you know what?
Uh-huh.
I don't really know exactly why that's the way it's always been done, but it is. And until we figure out a better way, or maybe we can, explore and see why it's the way it is,
Right. Or let's
Um,
go find an answer together. Like, for
yeah,
instance, like I remember my younger brother, like my parents have always taught us, ask questions, ask a lot of questions because that's the way that you're going to learn. That's the way that you discover by asking questions. We don't come out the womb knowing everything.
right.
So, I mean, I remember like, when you're younger, your teacher leaves messages in your little agenda book, and
Yep.
one of his teachers left a message saying he asked too many questions in class. You need to tell him
Aw,
to stop asking so many questions. And I was like,
that's
what?
heartbreaking.
Like, he's trying to learn. You're supposed,
Yeah,
like, if you don't have an answer, just say, you know what? I'll come back to you on that.
yeah. Or
Don't
let me
like
look
push
into
it.
that for you. Or you know what? I don't know.
Yes.
Let's see if we can figure it out together
Mm.
because you know what? I don't really know either. That's just what they told me. And so now I'm telling you, it's
No,
yeah,
definitely.
I have a funny story. This is another
Mm-hmm.
one that I like to share, and it's funny. I haven't thought of it in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have any idea where the story came from, but it goes to we just do things because it's the way they've always been done. And we
Right.
never ask questions about why it's done that way. So there's a girl, right, where she's in college, the way I heard the story, and she is going home for Christmas break,
Mm-hmm.
and her roommate can't go home for whatever reason or whatever the case is. So they're going home to the girls' home together.
Right.
And they're at the girls' home, and it's Christmas Eve, and they're cooking Christmas dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and the girls get the responsibility of the Christmas ham.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they're working together, and the girl says, grab that pan over there and we'll cook the ham in the pan. And
Mm-hmm.
and the girl brings the pan over, and the other girl cuts the ends off the ham and puts the ham in the pan. And her friend goes, why do you cut the ends off the ham?
Uh-huh.
And she said, well, I don't know. Like, that's the way my mom always did it. And that's the way my grandma always did it. And she turned to her grandma and she said, Grandma, why do we cut the ends off the ham? And her,
Uh-huh.
her grandma said, honey, it just didn't fit in the pan. So here's this tradition of this
Uh-huh.
special way they cook their ham.
Mm-hmm.
And it had nothing to do with anything other than at some particular point that the ham did not fit in the pan. The grandmother cut the ends off of the ham so that it would fit in the pan. Nobody asked questions. It became this family tradition,
To
and
cut the
nobody
ends
ever
off the
questioned.
ham.
Yeah,
That is hilarious. I think there's so many things that we are taught from generation to generation that is basically a story like that. It
yeah,
just didn't fit, so that's how
yeah,
we just carried on with it.
yeah. And it took somebody being outside of that smaller sphere
Mm-hmm.
who had who had grown up with this tradition to say, wait a minute, why do you do that?
Right.
So if we can get curious for ourselves like that
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, just to
say,
wonder like where we would be.
yeah,
Just being able to ask ourselves questions. Why do I do this? Why do I like this? Why do I want this? I think that is especially important when we look at materialistic things. Do we want
yeah,
this because we actually like it or because it's trending and it's
yeah,
popular? Is
yeah.
this something that we actually like?
Well, and for me, a big thing is, why do I feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
What triggered me to feel this way about that thing?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, the way I'm feeling about this scenario over here feels a whole lot bigger than it should.
No,
Where's that coming
definitely.
from?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, a gigantic thing, like so much of my work focuses on, I mean, everything comes back to the emotions, but
Mm-hmm.
with emotional intelligence and with our emotions and the way things work, they're thoughts, feelings, and actions, and they're all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And my gift, I discovered, is discernment. So, which made total sense because I work a lot on perspective and how we see things and what things mean and all the different variations and
Right.
giving things meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I do a lot of work with looking at how we think about things, looking at how we interpret things, looking at the stories that we tell ourselves, realizing that when we're in a challenging situation and it brings up an emotion, our brain takes us to worst case scenario. Our
Mm-hmm.
sweet brain that's trying to protect us, but
Yes.
really isn't they're protecting us from something that happened years and years and years ago potentially, but we still hold on to that belief that this thing is true.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love working with these young women to say, hey, how are you thinking about that? Best bumper
Mm-hmm.
sticker ever. Don't believe everything you think.
No, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I know we're cutting close on time, so I want to get in the last question that I ask all of my guests. What is one thing that you would say to women around the world to inspire them to dream without limitation?
It's going to make me cry. Um, be true to you. Be curious
Mm.
about yourself. I'm crying. Be curious about yourself. Be curious about other people.
Mhm.
Be open. Be conscious with your thoughts. Be conscious with your choices. Be intentional with your thoughts and choices. Um, Explore. Like, don't be afraid to do things differently.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to do things differently. Don't be afraid to ask questions when things don't tick for you.
Right.
Like the way it's always been done may not be the right way for you, and that's okay.
Mhm. It's okay to be unconventional, to think
Yeah,
unconventionally.
yeah,
That may be your power.
yeah.
But we do thank you, Shannon, for sharing your story. I feel like we connected on so many levels,
Oh,
our
I
stories
know.
together. I do want to give you the opportunity to allow the audience to know if they want to connect with you, if they want to follow your journey, how can they do that?
Well, it's kind of interesting because my journey continues to evolve. Um,
Yes.
I do have a website currently called girlsgetreal.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's outdated, and I'm working on rebranding and a new website that really touches on these things that we've talked about today.
Mm-hmm.
That really shares my heart. I'm Shannon Short on Facebook. If they want to connect with me personally, I'm more than happy for them to message me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am Shannon M. Short on
Okay.
Instagram. I do have a business page on Facebook for Girls Get Real.
Okay.
And my email address is shannon@girlsgetreal.com. I would love to connect with anybody who this has resonated with. And I would
Yes.
love to stay connected to you.
Yes, most definitely. We have to. But we do thank you for sharing your story with us here today. I'm sure so many girls and women have learned so much from your story, from your inspiration. And I am myself am just encouraged. And I love this conversation that we've had here today. We thank you, everyone, once again for tuning in. This is
Thank
Made to Dream. I'm your host, Maya Chanel, and we'll see you next time.